Well,
Yeah,
we
really,
have wandered very far from crying and laughing, which is great.
it's great.
But I
Like
did
one.
want to ask you about about ALS a little bit,
Yeah,
just because it strikes me that this is book three. That this extremely profound experience. I never want to be Barbara Walters and be like, please cry, Lance, please. I don't.
sure.
That's why we're laughing about Bridges in Madison
Yeah.
County before I come back to this. But three, why do you think it was? You needed to write two books before it was finally time to write about this, or had you written about it previously? Was there a period of separation that was useful to you from the original experience?
Right. Definitely. I would say yes, definitely. Um, Time helped. But yeah, I think it was less of a conscious decision than that. I think, I had the idea for Denton. That became my first book. Naturally, my second book was going to be just the sequel to that. And then when it came time, what is this third book going to be? Actually, I didn't have to think that hard because that line came to me, that I told you about, like the day I found out my dad got sick was also the day I discovered I had superpowers. Um, and I should say that line and that idea of what that book was, of Winnie getting stronger as her dad gets sicker, was inspired by a real thing my dad said to me. Um, a couple years after he got sick, when I had first gotten out of college and I was starting my acting career, I think I had a couple of successful things happen. Um, and I remember him saying something to me like, maybe, let me get this right. He's like, hey, maybe the sicker I get, the more successful you'll get. And he was being kind of tongue in cheek, and it was kind of like a joke, but that stuck with me so much because it was like, I don't want that. Like, there's something so twisted about that because it's like, if it's between you remaining healthy or me having this great career, I choose you being healthy. Um, and you hear people. I just saw someone tweeting about this recently about these moments when really good news, good personal news might come at the same time as really terrible news, or something terrible happening to someone you love at the same time that you get this great news. And I think the tension between those two things, there's something very human and universal about that. That's just like what life is. It's the mess and the triumph. They're always it's very hard to compartmentalize those things, because it's all just happening all the time. And so that just seems so interesting to me, that's what got me writing about that. And when I first started writing that story where she had her superpowers, I wasn't sure if I was going to directly make it ALS. I felt like, oh, maybe he should have something kind of unexplained. Maybe it's like he has this unexplained illness and she's got this unexplained thing, and then it all ties together. But at the same time, then I started to feel like, in the first Denton book, it was like he, had this death date and was scheduled to die, and then makes it to the second book. He doesn't die. I've said the words. There's the spoiler alert. He doesn't die. I've come out and said it,
And you won't want him to.
and you won't want him to. Thank you, Rob. Um, but I felt like I don't want to work in that world again. If I'm going to write about death again and mortality, I'd like it to be. I don't want there to be any loopholes. I want it to be like, no, this is life and all its messiness. And so ultimately, I felt like, no, I think he'll be diagnosed with ALS, and there won't be a way to save him. And that was kind of part of the theme of her being a superhero, was going to be that she has all these powers, but she can't save the person she wants to save the most, her dad. I still think it's a very good idea, although while at the same time feeling like Crying Laughing, the book I've written, is a better book than that one was, at least in that form. But in a way, those ideas went into Crying Laughing because her superpower is kind of her ability to be funny and her comedic ability, which she's learning how to use these powers as her dad, who was like the funny person in her life, her whole life. He is losing his powers, maybe not his abilities to be funny, but he's like physically losing his powers. And so I feel like those themes made it into the new version, but in a more grounded form.
It's interesting to me. Was this your idea? Okay, no superpowers. The equivalent to that is improv comedy, or was that suggested to you? Did that kind of come out of a discussion?
Yeah, I think it was once my editor said, when he doesn't have any passions, I felt like, well, she should have some passions. And I remember talking about it with my wife, Katie, and she was like, well, maybe, she should have some of your passions, or maybe like, what's a world you want to go into? Maybe it should be comedy or improv. And I was like, yeah, maybe it should be comedy or improv. And that slowly kind of unfolded in my mind. I loved the idea of funniness as a superpower too. And like I said earlier, as a power that will help you kind of cope with